All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of Amazing Fishing Access Sites. If you're here to learn about where some of the best places in the country to go fishing are for trout with your spin, fly rod gear, light tackle in a river, stream, lake, or pond, where there's some amazing stuff going on, you're in the right place. This is episode 3. I'm Scott. This is Red Bandia Outdoors. Welcome. I'm so very happy to have you today. This is an amazing place. This is very special to me. I'm a fish biologist turned YouTuber, living the dream, being the star of my own fishing show on TV. So I'm happy to talk about this place that I'm at today with you. And this is the Kelly Island Fishing Access Site just outside of Missoula, Montana. We're about 20 minutes from downtown right now. And we are in the interior portion of Kelly Island, which is where the confluence of the Bitterroot River from the south and the Clark Fork River from the east meet and turns into the lower Clark Fork River and flows west towards Idaho. This is a truly amazing spot, not only because of the fishing, but because of the ecology and the floodplain preservation that is going on here. This is something you really don't get to see on a lot of Montana's rivers and a lot of places because the floodplain has been taken away. It's been pinched down by a road, railway, development, agriculture filled in. You've seen it when you drive the highways here. You don't see river bottoms like this. So I want to tell you a little bit about this site today. Probably have a 2-day video, one today going through this site and the ecology of it, and another tomorrow where I do more fishing and try to catch some of the fun, the fish that are out here, the trout, and some of the fun places to fish, these side channels and log jams and things like that. So thanks for tuning in. Again, this is Kelly Island in Missoula, Montana. Amazing Fishing Access Sites, episode 3. Let's get started. I picked this spot to stop and start the video because it illustrates almost everything you're going to talk about in this video with floodplains, this access site, and a lot of the cool ecology that goes on right here. This channel right next to me, I would consider it a spring creek, and I would say that because more of the water that's coming into this channel is going to come from underground rather than surface water off the river at this particular discharge and lower throughout the summer. This is obviously a big side channel where at high flows it floods and the river flows through here, and that's how floodplain spring creeks work. If you guys are familiar with fly fishing, you've heard of some of the very, very famous pay-to-play spring creeks in the Paradise Valley of Montana, on the Yellowstone River, the Depew, the Armstrong, and the Nelson Spring Creeks. I was fortunate enough to go to one of those, Armstrong, back in the 90s when it was 25 bucks a day as a college student on a spring break trip. I don't know what it is now, but those are spring creeks on a very dynamic floodplain, the Yellowstone River, the largest undammed river in our country. And to protect those spots, they've put in riprap and done things so the river won't migrate back and forth across the floodplain and overtake those for a decade or two as a flowing side channel of the river and not a spring creek. Hopefully you understand that. You can go onto Google Earth and look at those spring creeks and see there's lines of huge riprap along the Yellowstone River, one of our most precious rivers, to protect those pay-for-play spring creeks. So the ecology that I'm going to describe here in this video does not occur. I'm not saying that in a bad way, I'm just saying that in an informative way so you understand what I'm going to describe to you. So we're standing on potentially what could be a famous spring creek, right? If this was a private ranch and public wasn't allowed to walk out here and do as they want, recreate, maybe you could block it off and protect this and make it a spring creek. But no, this is a naturally functioning floodplain where the river rips through here when it's high, and when it's low it flows in that channel over there and that channel over here, and this one here just bubbles out of the ground not too far out and flows down. And so all the other cool stuff that's going on here, because this is a channel that floods, you're standing where I'm standing right here. I'm going to turn the camera, is a mature cottonwood grove. You can see behind me, this is a mature cottonwood grove. You know, we're probably 8 feet, 10 feet above that riverbed. And then you can see out in front of me here, up the channel, You can see these inset floodplains with mature cottonwoods and stuff laid down on them, full of young willow and full of young cottonwood. You can see one across from me here that's full of more medium-sized willow and cottonwood. And then look across the river out there and you see another mature stand of cottonwood trees. It's just a very dynamic ecosystem. It's a floodplain ecosystem. This is how the fish, the cutthroat that live here, the bull trout that were here as native fish, this is what they lived with. And I'm going to show you something very, very interesting about this spot. I'm not sure you can see it or if we have to get closer somehow, but this little pool right here has this bend. And there's a nice good flow of water in it, and there's a little bit of cover there. But as you can see on this whole floodplain out there, there's a lot of gravel. And sometimes there's a good pockets of the perfect gravel for fish to spawn in. Well, at the tail out of this little pool here, there's a big fish red where a fish just came in and spawned on that. And I've talked about this in my other videos where on the Deschutes River where fish are spawning, you see these cleaned areas of gravel where they're pushed up and the eggs are laid in and gravel's laid over the top of it, and they're fertilized by the male, protected with more gravel, and they're usually in a spot where there's good flowing water to be moving through that. And that's another sign that this is a spring creek, because these fish are smarter than we are. They've lived here for eons, and they've identified the geomorphology and the hydrology that's occurring here to make sure that there's water that's going to flow through this channel for the next 60 days or so, say, to incubate those reds or incubate those eggs, and those fish will come out maybe early July or something like that. And there'll still be water in this channel, and there'll be habitat in this channel for the young fish to hide in and grow. And so this is going to be cool water because it's going to be bubbling out of the ground. It's not going to have seen as much sunlight as the main surface water of the river, which is coming from miles and miles above. So here's some of the amazing ecology on a public fishing access site 20 minutes from downtown Missoula. It's all about preserving your floodplains, folks. I think I'm going to probably cut this segment right here. You're going to see me go around and show a few more pieces of this floodplain. I'm going to be down there at that log jam you can see further down the river and toss some fish finder jigs in there. But for this segment right here, I'm going to close it out and say, hey, if this is the kind of content that you like, this is the kind of information that you value, head over to my store at fishfinderjigs.com, where you not only find the finest in trout tackle, homespun flies and jigs that I use, you see on this channel. They're all available to you. There's also t-shirts just like this. Native fish, wild fish, non-AI designs. Pick up a t-shirt that you design that you like, and the color and size that you need. That'll really help out this channel and allow me to come do more videos like this. I'm thinking about episode 4, when and where that might be. It's important that I come to these sites at the right time of year. This is a great time of year to be at Kelly Island. It's late June. The river's coming down from its snowmelt. The spring creeks are settling in. The fish are finishing up spawning. The bugs are hatching. So there's a lot of planning and travel that is associated with that. So if this is the kind of content that you like, and you have some ideas of amazing fishing sites you want me to check out, think about, put something in the comment, subscribe, like, head over to my store, fishfinderjigs.com, see if there's something in there for you. Really appreciate it. I'll see you out there on the floodplain. We're going to get out there and show you some more cool stuff in this video. All right, I've finished a transect all the way across the northern half of the fishing access site here at Kelly Island. I've cut a couple channels, a couple more of those spring creeks, one that was dammed up into a big pond. I caught a massive brown trout in that, so you're going to have to watch part 2, which is the fishing part of this video, where I do the fishing across Kelly Island, show you some cool stuff. Caught a giant brown trout. You're going to have to check that out. But I've made my way across. I want to stop here and talk more about the fishing access site itself, why it's so amazing, why you should check this out, and why floodplains are so important. And this spot demonstrates so many things that are important for the rivers in the western U.S. that should look like this. So let's get down to some of the numbers on Kelly Island. This is about a 7 150 acre site. The river carves some, gives some, takes some, builds some. You know, there's a lot of mud coming down after the Milltown Dam removal just above Missoula, so there's a lot of material coming down to build banks and things like that. So it's about 750 acres. Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks acquired this back in the 1970s, 1973. It was, it's been a popular fishing access site ever since then. The amazing thing about this is in the 260 hunting zone here in Montana, and that's bow hunting only. And it goes basically from Missoula all the way down the Bitterroot Valley. It's been bow hunting for a long, long time. And so you can come in here and hunt from September 9th all the way through January 15th. And that's why this place is very, very special to me. Not only the fishing, the exploring, the river bottom ecology, the science that's going on here. I basically started out my bow hunting career here. I moved out from back east to go to college at the University of Montana. And like most students, moved out of the dorm after a year and then started living in houses, you know, where you could get your bow and have a garage to hang up a deer. And I got into bow hunting. I was already into it. I just didn't have a place like this to experience it. And man, wow, what an immersion into the sport it was. That was back in the late or the early 1990s, mid 1990s, when Realtree monster bucks, Drury Outdoors, all that kind of stuff was on TV. There was none of this social media stuff. And this was the place that I came. This was the place that I came. I shot some of my first deer with my bow here, some pheasants, ducks, geese, all kinds of conditions, early season, mid-season, late season, so all phases of the rut. Totally amazing. I'm going to throw in some pictures while I'm talking of a few of the deer that I shot and some of the stuff that I saw down here during those days that were just memories I'll never forget. So Kelly Island, you know, you park your car at one of the fishing access sites. This has got 3 sites. I'll throw up the map. It's about 750 acres, say. There's one on the north off of Mullen Road, just on the other side of Council Bluff here. That's just outside of this picture if you look upriver. That's a park and walk in. Then if you come around to the south, you'll hit 7th Street. That's where I'm parked at today. That's a real small 4 kind of car parking area where you walk down between the neighborhood houses and come out onto the floodplain. And immediately you're into channels that you got to cross and stuff like that. And then the main parking area with the boat ramp is right off Spurgeon Road. There's an improved parking area there with paved parking, bathroom, and then a good boat ramp. One of the main channels of the river comes down and kind of grinds into the bank there, makes a big deep hole, and the boat ramp's just there after that. So the Spurgeon Road one, that's gated, and that's open at 6:30 to 10 p.m. during the season. The other 2 are for walk-in. I believe you can walk in there anytime you want. There's no sign that says you can't. And that allows you to get in and out of here in the dark when you're bow hunting and stuff like that. And boy, did we have some fun down here. This patch of trees back here across this big opening, there's a line of trees back there, and that's where I had several stands. And one of the things that we would do would be we'd do a deer drive. So a bunch of us would come down here and get into our stands around 1:30 in the afternoon in November, and then someone else would come down about 2 hours later and basically jump shoot ducks through all these back channels and sloughs and stuff like that and push deer. So we'd always have deer moving, and that would get other deer moving. So it was super cool activity. And so on the other side of the river here, it's private land. There's big fields, big ag fields. And so you could sit out there with your binoculars and you could look at the big bucks out there in the field. But once it got cold, snowy, and windy, they crossed the river and came over here where all the cover was. And this is where all the rutting activity went down. So super cool immersion into bow hunting. And Kelly Island is still got it. I've seen deer today. There's trails all over the place, tons of tracks. A little bit more on the history of this. The reason it's called Kelly Island is there's an Irishman with the last name Kelly that came over here from Europe, started his ranching and wheat farming and agricultural business, basically held it in the family, homesteaded here, you know, until development, you know, and years later ended up in the hands of Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. And you can still kind of see remnants of some of the fencing out here and things like that, where different property lines were and the river's cut through, and now it's kind of owned by the river bottom, and they might have lost some property and gained some property depending on where you're at. But remember, this is where two giant rivers come together. This is the Clark Fork from the east and the Bitterroot from the south. So we're talking tens and 20,000s of watershed acres that drain into these rivers. And when it's high, it floods over this whole floodplain in places, and this acts like a huge sponge. So right now I'm standing about 5-6 feet above the river, but as the channels cut through here and the water pours through this, all this soil, this sand and silt and grass roots and tree roots and all the limbs and rotting stuff, decaying stuff, it acts as a huge sponge, and it soaks in all that water, allows this vegetation to grow in the riparian area. But it also is a flood control, right? You know, you can think about the river just spilling out in its floodplain, slowing down, not grinding out on things, just really nice kind of lake pondish like flow out on a big floodplain, as opposed to a channelized raging river that anything it gets run into or anytime it gets out of its bank or whatever, it's ripping and tearing because there's so much force behind it. And that's why we need floodplains like this in all our rivers, not just for fishing and hunting, not just for wildlife viewing and kayaking and going out here and having a nice day, a stress-free day. These have ecosystem benefits that benefit our community and our society for years and years and years to come. So you can imagine in Montana, where we have giant rivers that used to have 10, 20, 30 channels as you went across the floodplain that are now down to one. That's a pretty tough condition to restore from, and we really need to be thinking about what direction we're going with this kind of stuff, because this is our water. This is our, the arteries of our ecosystems here in our country. So very important stuff. What else can I say? Get over there and check out my fishing video. I think I've given you a ton of information here on Kelly Island. It's easy to access, well signed out of town. When you get close enough to it, you start seeing the signs that bring you around through the different neighborhood roads to get you here. It's a great place. I was down here scouting it out yesterday. I mean, all the channels were filled with people like that who are just lying on the beach getting some sun in and doing some swimming. There was people putting in boats at the boat ramp to float down the river. I mean, this is a strategically placed and maintained boat ramp so you can access the lower Bitterroot River and some of the other channels around here. So it's great to have a boat ramp in this site. There isn't, one equidistant throughout in here. So this one holds that site, gives you some good access. Again, folks, thanks for watching. If you want to support the channel, you know where to go, fishfinderjigs.com. That's fishfinderjigs.com. A lot of cool stuff over there. I'll see you next time. Be watching for that Fishing Kelly Island video. Thanks for watching. See you out there.